were quickly sucked in the rapid currents of Vaigai river. Then Jnana Sambandar in his turn wrote Mahapanchakshari Mantram, and no sooner did he leave the leaf on the water than it became animated and swam against the swift current of the Vegavati river. The Kshapanakas were given the opportunity either to have faith in the Panchakshari mantra or to impale themselves to death. Thus, the Pandya king and his kingdom was back to the Saivite tradition. In Pandya country, Jnana Sambandar travelled along the Vaigai river bank. Across the river, he saw a temple and the river sands too appeared as Shivalingam. He started a decade of Devaram facing the Lord outside the temple on the other bank of the river. As the hump of the bull Nandi was an obstruction, the Lord ordered Nandi to reduce himself in size, and the glorious form of the Lord was a grand treat for Jnana Sambandar and his party.
Arayar punalum mamalarum adaravar sadime. Arayar punalum mamalarum adaravar sadime.
During Jnana Sambandar's pilgrimage in Pandya country, at Rameshwaram, Jnana Sambandar sang the glory of the two important Siva Kshetrams of Sri Lanka also. One is the famous Tirukonamalai, which is more than 3,300 years old. The original temple sung by Jnana Sambandar was ransacked in the 17th century AD by the Portuguese. Recently, that is 60 years back, when the devotees of the Lord Shiva tried to rebuild the temple, they found all the old bronze statues when they just dug the land only 3 feet deep in the old site. This temple was worshipped by Ravaneshwara. When he wanted to lift this kshetram to cure his mother's illness, Lord Shiva put his feet to stop him from doing so. The darshan of Shiva's feet here is considered sacred. This is also one of the famous Sakti Kshetram, Lankayam Shankari Devi.
Nirai kadal laravam silamboli alambum nimalar nirani tirumeni nirai kadal laravam silamboli alambum nimalar nirani tirumeni varai kazhu magal mor பாகமா புணர்ந்த வடிவினர் கொடியணி விடையரு வரை கழு மகள் மோர் பாகமா புணர்ந்த வடிவினர் கொடியணி விடைய குற்றம் இல்லாதார் குறை கடல் சூழ்ந்த கோணமாமலை அமர்ந்தாரை குற்றம் இல்லாதார் குறை கடல் சூழ்ந்த கோணமாமலை அமர்ந்தார் கற்றுணர் கேள்வி கற்றுணர் கேள்வி காழியர் பெருமான் கருத்துடை ஞான சம்பந்தன் சம்பந்தன் கற்றுணர் கேள்வி காழியர் பெருமான் கருத்துடை ஞான சம்பந்தன் சம்பந்தன் உற்ற செந்தமிழார் மாலையீரைந்தும் உரைப்பவர் கேட்பவர்.
Jnana Sambandhar's father wanted to see his son and so arrived at Madurai. Jnana Sambandar received him with honor and started towards Chola country on his pilgrimage. After visiting Patala Kshetram, they arrived at the Vyagra river. Across the river was Tirukollambudu, Vijayapureshmurti, in the temple served in the past by Arjuna, one of the Pandavas. The river was in spate presently and seemed too strong and dangerous to negotiate. Despite warnings from his followers and the boatmen, Jnana Sambandar enthused them all to board the boat and untie it, and then he joined them. The surging waves inspired Jnana Sambandar to pour out a decade of devotional stanzas which ferried the boat safely across the river. The devotees worshipped the Lord Bilvavaneshwara with a deep sense of gratitude.
கொட்டமே கமழும் கொல்லம் பூதூர் கொட்டமே கமழும் கொல்லம் பூதூர் நட்டம் ஆடிய நம்பனை உள்க நட்டம் ஆடிய நம்பனை உள்க நம்பனை உள்க நம்பனை உள்க செல்ல உந்துக செல்ல உந்துக சிந்தையார் தோழ செல்ல உந்துக சிந்தையார் தோழ நல்குமாரருள் நம்பனே நல்குமாரருள் நம்பனே.
In Tirukkadal and got rid of his nature of anger. Jnana Sambandar worshipped the Lord here with a decade of Devaram.
நீருளார் கயல் வாவி சூழ் பொழி நீண்ட மாவயல் ஈண்டு மாமாதில் நீருளார் கயல் வாவி சூழ் பொழி நீண்ட மாவயல் ஈண்டு மாமாதில் தேறினாரு தேறினார் மருகில் விழ மல்கும் திருக்களருள் தேறினார் மருகில் விழ மல்கும்
One Veerasekara Jnanadeshika Swami, a chief of Kovilur Vedanta Mutt in the last century, also did penance here to get rid of the short-tempered nature. This Swami was a great Vedantin and visited Ramana Maharshi in the year 1904-05 in Tiruvannamalai. He obtained the details of Sahaja Samadhi Abhyasam for the sake of his disciples from Ramana Maharshi. This Swami established a mutt in Tirukala, renovated the temple and arranged a new big chariot for the temple festival. At the end of the first Rathotsava Deeparadhana, looking at the Lord in the chariot, this Swami left the body and attained union with the Lord. After visiting many temple towns and worshipping the Lord, Sambanda proceeded to Tirupunturuthi. As Appar was residing there in the service of the Lord, Sambanda wanted to visit him. Sensing Samband's arrival in this Pushpadri Kshetram, Vagisha went in advance, his heart brimming with joy, unnoticed in that human deluge. He slyly became one of the bearers of the Samband's palanquin. On inquiry and learning about the act of Appar, Sambanda immediately jumped out from the palanquin in consternation. He embraced the ripened saint and uttered in a quivering tone, "What error did I commit that I deserve this punishment?" Vagisa's whole frame shook in horripilation by Samband's gracious hug, and he said that it was his privilege to carry Sambanda at least a small distance. Then Appar led Sambanda to his mutt and both exchanged about the details of their pilgrimages. Tiruñana Sambandar, after singing the glories of Veera Attahasa Ishvara in Tirukoilur, went across the South Pennai river and paid his respects to the Lord Atulyanadeshwara in Arayaninallur through a Devaram.
பிடினார் பெரியோர்களும் பெதைமை கெடத்தீரில்ல பிடினார் பெரியோர்களும் பெதைமை கெடத்தீரில்ல விடினால் உயர்ந்தார்களும் விடினார் இளவள் மதி.
In Arayaninallur, Sambanda had darshan of a brilliant light, and while he was wondering what this brilliance could be, an old man appeared in front of him and said it was the darshan of Arunachala Jyoti and showed him the direction of Tiruvannamalai. Sambanda composed a Devara Padikam starting with Unnamulai Umayalodum.
உண்ணாமூலை உமையாளோடும் உடனாகிய ஒருவன் உண்ணாமூலை உமையாளோடும் உடனாகிய ஒருவன் உண்ணாமூலை உமையாளோடும் உடனாகிய.
The old man was the Lord Arunachala himself, and he led his child Sambanda to Tiruvannamalai along with his large party, explaining the glory of Arunachala himself on the way. Sambanda and his party were robbed of all their possessions. It was to set an example that devotees should approach the primal lingam of Arunachala without any pomp. Later, when Sambanda arrived at the temple of Arunachala, he addressed the Lord with another decade of Devaram and said, "Jnana Tiralai Indra Peruman," that is, The Lord Arunachala, who stands here as Moss of Knowledge Hill, removes I am the body consciousness and make one with him. This is a favorite Devaram for Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi of Tiruvannamalai.
ஞானத்திரளாய் நின்ற பெருமான் நல்ல அடியார் மேல் ஊனத்திரளை நீக்கும் அதுவும் உண்மைப் பொருள் போலும். நல்ல அடியார் மேல் ஊனத்திரளை நீக்கும் அதுவும் உண்மைப் பொருள் போலும்.
Set out to visit various Saivite centers of the south like Madurai etc. and Jnana Sambandar went towards north of the Tamil land. In this trip, Jnana Sambandar went to Vedapuram, that is Tiruvattipuram, near Cheyyar. One Talapalaka here had a palmyra grove. Contrary to his hope that the fruits could be served to devotees, all the palms turned out to be male and hence barren. He became a laughing stock to the local Jains, who ridiculed him and challenged, "If your Lord and your devotion to him are true, let these male palms bear fruit." When Talapalaka heard that Jnana Sambandar visiting this place, he approached him in all humility and appealed about the issue. Moved with pity, Jnana Sambandar meditated on the Lord and sang a decade. Even as the singing was in progress, the palms started producing fruit bunches. They soon ripened too, to the amazement of the devotees and to the shock of the Jain gang.
பூத்தேர்ந்தாயன கொண்டு நின் பொன்னடி எட்டாதாரில்லை எண்ணுங்கால். பூத்தேர்ந்தாயன கொண்டு நின் பொன்னடி எட்டாதாரில்லை எண்ணுங்கால். ஒத்தூர் மேய ஒளிமழுவாள் அங்கை ஓத்தூர் மேய ஒளிமழுவாளங்கை உத்தீர் உம்ம குணங்களே. ஓத்தூர் மேய ஒளிமழுவாளங்கை உத்தீர் உம்ம குணங்களே. குறும்பை ஆண்பனை இன்புனை ஓத்தூர். குறும்பை ஆண்பனை இன்புனை ஓத்தூர். அரும்பு கொன்றை அடிகளை அரும்பு கொன்றை அடிகளை பெரும்புகலியுள் ஞானதம்பந்தன் சொல். பெரும்புகலியுள் ஞானதம்பந்தன் சொல். விரும்புவார் வினை வீடே விரும்புவார் வினை வீடே வினை வீடே வினை வீடே.
From there, Jnana Sambandar proceeded to Sri Kalahasti, termed as Southern Kailash, and witnessed the Lord's glorious form adored of yore even by snakes, elephants and spider, and also the tribal chief Kannappa Nayanar, known for his devotion, who offered his own eyes. Reaching Kanchipuram and worshipping the Lord Ekambareshwara and Mother Kamakshi, Jnana Sambandar composed more than 40 stanzas on the glory of the Lord there.
மறையானை மாசில்ல புஞ்சடை மல்கும் விரையானை பெண்ணோடு ஆண் ஆகிய பெம்மானே மறையானை மாசில்ல புஞ்சடை மல்கும் பிறையானை பெண்ணோடு ஆண் ஆகிய பெம்மானே இறையானை ஏர்கொள் கட்சி இறையானை ஏர்கொள் கட்சி திரு ஏகம்பத்து உறைவானை அல்லது உள்காது எனது உள்ளமே இறையானை ஏர்கொள் கட்சி திரு ஏகம்பத்து உறைவானை அல்லது உள்காது எனது உள்ளமே.
Then Jnana Sambandar went to Tiruvalangadu, Vataranyam, where the glorious Saivite lady saint Karaikal Ammayar witnessed the Urdhva Tandavam of the Lord. Unwilling to set his foot on this holy land, Jnana Sambandar stayed overnight in the nearby mutt. Lord Nilakanta appeared in the dream of Jnana Sambandar and asked him, "Did you forget to sing me here? And would you go without visiting me in the temple?" Jnana Sambandar woke up and, wondering the Lord's grace, rushed to the temple and sang the glory of the Lord, and then proceeded to Mylapore in Chennai after visiting Tiruvattriyur. In Mylapore, that is Mayurapuram, the Lord is renowned as Kapalishwara, was once worshipped by Uma in the form of peahen. Here lived a rich Vaishya, Shivapriya of the merchant class, who was pious, charitable and adorer of Shiva and his devotees. He had a daughter, Poombavai. Speaking her unearthly beauty, the father resolved to offer her as the bride to Jnana Sambandar. But, as if decreed by fate, at the age of 7, she was bitten by a venomous snake and died. Pacified by his friends and relatives, the father gained composure of mind and preserved the ashes and bones of his dead daughter and awaited Jnana Sambandar's arrival. After 5 years of waiting, Shivapriya was informed that Jnana Sambandar was presently visiting the shrine at Mylapore. He rushed to the Kapalishwara temple, and after initial worship in the temple, Jnana Sambandar bade Shivapriya to fetch his daughter's ashes to the temple. When the pot of ash was brought, Jnana Sambandar prayed to the Lord, who brings auspiciousness to the servitors of his devotees. Then he sang a decade suffused with devotion, pathos and earnestness. To the wonder of all,
the assembled devotees, the vessel gave way to Pumbavai, who rose from it like Sri Mahalakshmi from the lotus bud. She also had grown to the stature of 12 years.
மட்டிட்ட புன்னயம் காணல் மடமயிலை கட்டிட்டம் கொண்டான் கபாலீச்சரம் அமர்ந்தான். மட்டிட்ட புன்னயம் காணல் மடமயிலை கட்டிட்டம் கொண்டான் கபாலீச்சரம் அமர்ந்தான். கபாலீச்சரம் அமர்ந்தான். கபாலீச்சரம் அமர்ந்தான். ஒட்டிட்ட பண்பில் ஒட்டிட்ட பண்பில் உருத்திர பல்கணத்தார் கட்டிட்டல் காணாதே போதியோ பூம்பாவாய். ஒட்டிட்ட பண்பில் உருத்திர பல்கணத்தார் கட்டிட்டல் காணாதே போதியோ பூம்பாவாய். அட்டிட்டல் காணாதே போதியோ பூம்பாவாய். போதியோ பூம்பாவாய். போதியோ பூம்பாவாய். போதியோ பூம்பாவாய்.
Shivapriya was overwhelmed at the superhuman act of the boy sage and remained speechless for a time. Then, falling at the feet of Jnana Sambandar, he said, "As per my resolve, pray accept my daughter as your bride along with all my property." In reply, Jnana Sambandar said that giving birth to her, he became her father, and giving her rebirth, he too became her father, and advised them both to spend their life in spiritual pursuit. Then Jnana Sambandar went to Madurai and offered worship at the Meenakshi temple, and after staying a few days at Sirgadi, went to Chidambaram to worship the universal Lord Nataraja. On the outskirts was the Shivapuri temple, from where later thousands of devotees were fed by the Lord himself prior to attending the marriage of Jnana Sambandar.
உடையினார் புள்ளி கால் பொருந்திய மடையினார் மணி நீர்தல் வாயிலார். புடையினார் புள்ளி கால் பொருந்திய மடையினார் மணி நீர்நல் வாயிலார். நடையில் நாள் வீரல் கோவணம் நயந்து நடையில் நாள் வீரல் கோவணம் நயந்து உடையினார் எமது உச்சியாரே. உடையினார் எமது உச்சியாரே.
When Jnana Sambandar returned to Sirgadi, the elders took up the discussion of marriage to carry on the Vedic tradition. After much persuasion, Totra Purnambika was to be wedlocked with Jnana Sambandar. It was the month of Vaisakha, April-May, in the star of Moola. A human sea of devotees, friends and relatives followed to feast their eyes during this rare event at Nallur Perumanam for the marriage, and all the rituals connected to the marriage was followed meticulously. The Brahmana Panditas recited in sonorous voices Swasti and other auspicious mantras appropriate to the occasion. Jnana Sambandar, along with the bride, came near the sacred fire and made oblations into it. When the ritual of going round the fire was to be undertaken, Jnana Sambandar felt that The fire Shiva Teja, that is Satchit Ananda, being consciousness bliss, is the worthy of adoration. It effaces the seed of birth. So let me reach my Lord's brilliance and going round it, put an end to my karma. Contemplating thus, he proceeded with the bride to the local temple, his bridegroom attire still shining fresh. The spontaneity of his act induced all who assembled for the marriage at the Achalpuram to follow him just as the cow runs after her calf. Circumambulating the temple of Shivaloka Tyagaraja, Sambandar resolved to attain the hallowed state of Shivam and sang the last decade, Kadalagi Kashindu Kannir Malgi, extolling the greatness of the Panchakshari. Prompt came the reply from the Shivalinga. My child, Sambandar, I offer my state of love to you and your noble concert, and also to all those who congregated at your hallowed wedding. Even fools and sinners now I permit in my being, for my love for you is boundless. Immediately there arose a blazing column of light from the Shivalingam, engulfing everything in its wake. This mysterious form of grace was visible to all assembled there for the marriage. Some, fearing that a fire broke out in the temple, started to run away. Nandikeshwara assured them otherwise and brought them back. The Universal Mother Uma offered them all the vibhuti and assured the assemblage of total union with the Lord. She acquired the name Sweta Vibhuti Nayaki, Tiruvennitru Umai Ammai, in this temple. Soon an exodus began from the assemblage to enter the light. Devotees with Saiva insignia, the Brahmins proficient in the Veda and Agamas, leapt into the fiery column. Then Sambandar shouted Hara Hara Mahadeva, resounding the quarters. Enthused at this, others too dared into the light. Tiruneelanagna Nayanar, who acted as the priest of the rituals of the marriage, Muruganayanar, Shivapada Hridaya, Sambandha Charanalaya, uncle and recorder of Sambandhar's Devarams, Neelakanta Yalpana Nayanar, the bride's parents, all entered the column of light holding the hands of their consorts. The other Brahmanas assembled there entered the column chanting the Veda all the way. After making sure that everyone present there entered the light, Sambandar went round the light 3 times holding the bride's hand. Paying his last homage to the Lord, Sambandar humbly entered the blazing pillar with his bride Stotra Purnambika. Soon the light disappeared as mysteriously as it appeared, and the Shivalingam came into sight again. This story of the great Shian of Shaiva Sanatana Dharma purifies those who contemplate on it. The words of Mahatmas are indeed true. Tiruchitrambalam.
காதலகி கசிந்து கண்ணீர் மல்கி ஓதுவார் தம்மை மன்னரிக்கு உய்ப்பது காதலகி கசிந்து கண்ணீர் மல்கி ஓதுவார் தம்மை நன்னரிக்கு உய்ப்பது நன்னரிக்கு உய்ப்பது நன்னரிக்கு உய்ப்பது வேதம் 4 நாதம் நாமம் நமச்சிவாயவே வேதம் நான்கினும் மெய்ப்பொருளாவது நாதம் நாமம் நமச்சிவாயவே நமச்சிவாயவே நமச்சிவாயவே